So hi everybody, welcome to this video. I do apologise that I have no flashy intro or outro. In fact, I might have an outro at the end, but I don't actually have an intro for the modelling on a budget. Right, I have reached that stage of my modelling life where I've run out of my thinners and my cleaners. So I need to make some more. Make some more, you say? Yes, I make my own cleaners and thinners. Now, what I found, I just done a quick look on Amazon. Obviously, other shopping places are available. And I've just found, remember these figures, guys. Tamiya thinner, £10.83 for 250 mils. For reference, that is £43.32 per litre. I then looked on Vallejo for Vallejo Airbrush cleaner, £10.54, 200 mil. That works out at £52.57 per litre. I am going to show you how to make some cleaner that is comparable, which is why I've chosen the Vallejo Airbrush cleaner, and it's going to cost me the equivalent of just under £9 for both of these. So we are going to need, to make both of these, we're going to need 5 ingredients. I'm going to make these together just to confuse everybody. We are going to need isopropanol alcohol 99.9%, and this has cost me, I've had this a while, so I've just gone on to Amazon. I've done a quick look. Now this has cost me £7.57 per litre, but I'm not obviously going to use all of it. It's £7.57 per litre. Some of you may already have some of this laying around, some of you may not. You're going to need this for both the cleaner and the thinners. The next ingredient that we're going to, and these are now unique, you're going to need flow improver, and that, let me just come back to that. You're going to need fluid retarder. Now the reason I put fluid retarder in is if you're going to thin this and then shoot it through an airbrush, it's going to dry a lot quicker. So this is just going to slow the drying time down. Now I found one page, they actually sell you 1 bottle of flow improver 250 ml and 1 bottle of fluid retarder 250 ml for £25.78. So that's like 12 and a half, £13 a bottle. It is expensive, but this, do you know what, I doubt I'll ever buy another. Well, I might buy, looking at the amount I've used there, but I don't think I'll buy another bottle. And this retarder, I mean, I think I've had this, the level it's there, and I've had this bottle about 5 years. This one is there, that's the flow improver, and I was a little bit generous with it when I was first using it. Now the 2 ingredients that you're going to need for the cleaner, this is going to be a warning. This is household ammonia, and it says strong. It is strong. I made the stupid mistake of giving it a very gentle, what I did is I took the lid off and I went like that, and it nearly knocked me out. So if I'd have put my nose to it and took a big sniff, I don't know what would have happened. So be very, very careful with this. So I'm going to put it out there, guys. If you are under 18, I'm strongly advising you to switch this video off now. If you really do want your own cleaner or your thinners, get someone else to make it for you. Not saying you're irresponsible, but obviously I don't want to be responsible for anyone getting themselves knocked out. Now this is £9.80 for half a litre. This is half a litre. Now this will last you ages. I'll explain that later on. And the last one is concentrated screen wash. I did look on Amazon for a price, but you can buy this from any garage, really, any petrol station. Now this needs to be concentrate. Don't get winter mix, don't get summer mix, get concentrated. It needs to be neat. Now this is the stuff that you will put in your car windscreen reservoir. You'll put a certain amount in, and then you'll dilute it. So it says here, for summer use, 100 ml of screen wash per litre of water. So what's this, a 5? This is a 1 litre. So I'd probably put half a bottle in my reservoir. But yeah, we need, it has to be neat. Do not use the concentrated stuff. Now I like the blue because it will colour your cleaners, which then makes it stand out from your thinners. So I need to take a break because I've forgotten one ingredient, which I'll come back to in a moment. And just like that, I'm back. Right, so I have got more than enough water in here. Now, most people will say use distilled water because it's not got all bits and bobs in. I live in Scotland. The water in Scotland is wonderful. This is tap water. If you live in a hard water area, go for distilled water, which unfortunately will cost you money, and I have not factored those costs into making this thinner. But distilled water, I mean, you can buy bottled water. You can pick up maybe a litre bottle for round about the £1 mark. So I don't think it's going to sway my figures too much. Now, my bottles, you'll see I've got some blue lines on them. When I made my very first batch, I measured everything. And then I put a little bit of electrical tape so that now every time I make it, I don't have to measure. It is quite a thick line, and it really doesn't matter. I'm going to give you quantities, but do not stick to them exact. So if I say this is a 50 ml mark, this is a 150 ml mark, taking into account that it's already got 50 ml in there. So our first ingredient is going to be IPA, which is the alcohol. And what I'm going to do now, for me personally, I'm going to put 50 ml in. Now, if you've got a bigger bottle, then what you need to do is step up or step down the amount of product that you put in. So be careful with this. It's a bit honky, but I quite like the smell of it. And what we're going to do is we're going to pour 50 ml in there to roughly, there's a little bit too much in there. Yeah, there you go. I don't know if you can see that, guys, but that is 50 ml, and that's all we do. And that's probably our biggest ingredient. Now we want to add some water on a 2 parts water to 1 part IPA basis. So in my particular case, it's 50 ml, and all we're going to do is just bring that up to the line, and that's 100 ml in there of water and 50 ml. So obviously if you're going to put 200 ml of IPA in, you put 400 ml of water in, and then we're going to add 2 little things to that. And now again, this is only rough. I've got 3 millilitres of flow improver. Now I use a spoon. A spoon is widely accepted as being 5 millilitres. So where's the 3 mark on that? Maybe roughly there. If you want to go a little bit over, that's fine. But we'll tip that in, and that's our flow improver. So you can see now why it's lasting forever, can't you? And then lastly, we've got our fluid retarder, and we're going to put, basically what I'm calling 3 millilitres is almost filling the spoon up. And there we go, that's it. So pop that in there. Now I bought these very handy tubes. These are fuel lines for remote control cars. I just find it controls things a little bit better. So if I want to pour some into something, I can just bring the hose down like that, then I can lift up the bottle. But I'm just going to take that off for a second, put the lid on, and I don't know if you need to give this a mix. but look, we've got some thinners there. Now I wish I could do smell-o-vision, because when I take that lid off and I give it a quick smell, I can't really tell the difference between that and Tamiya thinners. I don't know what's in Tamiya thinners. I don't know if the recipe is much different, but it smells the same and it acts the same. So you're going to want me to paint something now, aren't you? You want me to prove that this thinner actually does work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some Tamiya paint, and the reason I've gone for Tamiya paint, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go for this brown that I was using the other day. The reason I'm going to use Tamiya paint is Tamiya paint for me splits very easily underwater, using water. So I think this would be a good one to do a test bed with. Plus Tamiya is all ready to go out of the pot anyway. So we've got a little bit of, it's quite handy using a dark colour. So we've got some red brown there, and as you can see, look, that's quite thin anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, this is going to be a lot of drops. Let's actually use a dropper bottle. Whoops. So let's just pour a little bit into there. It's just a lot more easier to control. So I'm going to mix this by eye, roughly what I think is a roughly half and half. So that's roughly, I mean, I say it's not scientific, but that is roughly 1 part paint, 1 part thinners, homemade thinners. And then let's get a little bit of, oops, trust me to get a horrible brush. I think this is a Humbrol, yeah, this is a Humbrol starter kit brush. So there we go, guys. You see that's gone on very nicely. Now what I do find with this, I don't know if this is thinners in general, the first coat tends to go on quite horrible looking. It goes on nice, it's very thin, but it's nice. But when you then come to do the second coat, it really does lay down nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm just going to dry that with my airbrush. You see that's gone dry, and that looks a little bit thin, but it's a nice coverage. So what we'll do is we'll apply a second coat. And I am deliberately going in the same direction that I went on the first layer, because one of the tricks that we do is we go in opposite directions to eliminate brush marks, and that's quite nice coverage. You see how that second coat is so much nicer than the first. So it does get a bit disillusional. You thin your paints down. Now these, I don't think these really need thinning that much. If you're using something like Citadel paints, they're a lot thicker and you'll thin them a lot more. But look, really nice coat there. And then let's put a third coat on, just because. And I am using a horrible brush, and again I'm going in the direction which is naughty. You know, I should be going opposite direction, but this will hopefully demonstrate how thin your paint is. The thinner your paint, the less chance you have of having brush strokes. Now I've done this live, or what I call as live, and so there's no camera trickery. I've not left this overnight. The first coat went down maybe about a minute ago, and a second coat on top, which is breaking a lot of rules here, but the sake of but look, that's a nice coat, isn't it? Now I've slightly over thinned this, but let's really take the mickey, shall we? Let's thin that again. Now this is roughly 3 parts thinner, 1 part paint. It's roughly, don't, you know, it's not scientific. Now if that was water, and I could do water if you really want, but that would probably have split by now. And if that was Humbrol, that would almost certainly have split. So that paint is still going on nice, and you can see it's so much thinner. Now obviously if you were painting that consistency, you'd probably need about 4 or 5 coats on, so you wouldn't realistically paint unless you were doing glazing. Let's push this even more. So I've now doubled the amount of thinners, so it's what's that, 1 part, 2 parts, 5 parts water, 1 part paint. Basically it's very, very thin. Now I think most of you would agree, if this was water, and I will try it with water, but I think that would have split by now. Look at that, that's still going on nicely. And you can see it's much, much thinner. Yep. So let me take a break, and I'm going to I'm going to put some more paint down, but I'm going to thin it with water. If I can find my mouse. Okay, so what I've done is I've just taken the pieces off the sprue, because painting them on a sprue for this particular situation is not good. So I'm going to take the exact same colour, and I'm going to apply more paint. Let's put quite a little, not quite so much this time. What I've done is the one that I did with thinner, I've just dabbed it with a toilet roll. I don't want to clean it completely because we're going to make some cleaner in a minute. Right, so I'm going to apply, this is water, as you see. You'll have to believe me, it's got a label that says water, and I'm going to thin this roughly 50-50, which is the same consistency as this first piece of paint. First piece of paint? Is it a piece of paint? Right. And as we expected, it's gone on okay. I mean, like I say, these Tamiya paints, I don't really think you need to thin them. So that's the first coat gone on, and we'll just cheat and we'll dry that off quite fairly quickly, so that we can apply a second coat. So I applied 3 coats on that one, so let's be fair and we'll apply 3 coats on this one. Okay, so I'm calling that dry. So let's apply another coat. That's gone on a little bit thick actually, to be fair. A bit too much paint, well, more paint than I'd like to use. So then we'll dry that off. Because it's thicker, it's taken longer to dry at the bottom, which is a bit of a pain in the bum, but it's right, I'm going to just cheat, I'm going to do the top. So that's the second coat. And then the third coat, like we did before. Remember, we're only applying 3 coats because we've thinned it probably more than you'd need to. What was that? That was my cat. I bet that was the little one. Right, and there we go. It's just starting to dry on the edges, so you can see that. So a lot of you might be looking at this and going, well, hang on, Penny, you've just spent money and bought some chemicals and you've made a thinner, and then you've done another bit with water and you've got the same result. Why should I need to buy it? Yes, you are right. If you are to make model aircraft and all you ever use is a brush and Tamiya paint, stick with the water, guys. but we're going to make this a fair comparison, and I'm going to put roughly, it's only roughly, I've doubled the quantity of paint here with water. So this is now what, 3 parts water, 1 part paint, 1 and 1, yeah, about 3. Right, and that is going on, but it really doesn't want to stay there. It's just, that's just about at the breaking point. It really doesn't. Can you see it starting to bead at the edges? And look down there, look, can you see how it's starting to split? It really doesn't want to know, does it? So I'll let that one dry just for fun. Let's see if I dry it with the airbrush. Yeah, look, see that I can actually blow it off. That's way too thin. That's nasty thin. Do I need to thin it further? We might as well, mightn't we? So this is now thinned further. So that's about 7 parts water, 1 part paint. And I think we know where this is going to go. Look at that. There's no way that's going on there. You know, even with my blurry camera, you can see that that's split. That's what I call the paint split. It's just over thinned, and it's just not sticking. So the reason that that has applied nicely is mainly because of the flow improver, but also the alcohol. I don't know the science of it, but there is, let's do it fairly, there is thinner thinned, and there's water thinned. So like I say, if you're painting everything with Tamiya paints, as you can see, don't even bother making the thinners. But how many of you don't use an airbrush and don't use other products? So that's the result of my thinners. Now I'm going to do a little tiny bit of a clean up, but I've lost my tissue paper. There we go. So I just want to dab all the wet off of this. Again, there is a reason. We're going to be making some thinners in a moment, some cleaner. So let's make cleaner. So to make the airbrush cleaner, we're going to start off with the same process. So we're going to begin with IPA, and we're going to fill that up. In my particular case, it's going to be 50 milliliters, but basically it's 1 part, and by 1 part I mean as much as you want, 1/3. And then I actually think there's a little bit less in there than last time, but it really doesn't matter. So next up we've got water, and we're going to bring that up, so we're going to add 2 parts. So nothing different from the thinners. This is 1 part IPA, 2 parts distilled water. Now the next step, this is where it differs from the thinners. We're going to be adding screen wash, and we're going to be adding as much screen wash as we added IPA. So we're going to turn it into 1 part IPA, 2 parts water, 1 part screen wash. Now what this does is it has a bit of a cleaning motion as well as colouring it. Okay, so you see the whole lot's gone blue. So if you're looking at your thinners and products out of the corner of your eye, you're not gonna pick this up thinking it's thinners. That one is thinners, that one's cleaner. Right, so 2 critical ingredients we've got left. One ingredient, sorry, is this ammonia. Now like I say, be very, very careful with this. This absolutely reeks, and it hurts if you smell it. So you might want to use gloves, which is probably a good idea, but I'm going to use a spoon, and I'm going to pour very carefully. Don't necessarily do what I do. Now you can basically, you use between 3 and 5 mil. The more you put in, the stronger this stuff is. So I put 5 mil in. Once you've got that ammonia in there, it's not going to give you a strong smell. But get that lid on the ammonia as quickly as you can. You don't want to spill it. Yeah, that you can smell the ammonia in there, but not. It really isn't a patch on that. So let's just pull that off. Give this a mix. Now, an optional ingredient is a cup of 1 to 3 glugs of 3-in-1 oil. That will help lubricate your airbrush needle. I don't like it because oil doesn't mix with water. This is all water-based stuff. It doesn't mix with the water, and you get all these beads of oil at the top. Now, the other thing I'm going to say about this is not a top-of-the-range airbrush cleaner. The way that I use it is I will clean my airbrush with this, then I will rinse my airbrush through with water, and then I will use an airbrush cleaner. Now, my airbrush cleaner of choice is Medea, although I have been starting to use Mr. Tool Cleaner. Now, okay, I'm still using an airbrush cleaner, but whereas with this, if I use just this, I would probably use 3 or 4 airbrush fulls of cleaner, whereas if I'm using this, I'd do maybe 2 or 3, 4, 5, as many as I want, and then I will find, once I think the airbrush is clean, I'll then put a few drops of this in. I am literally using a few drops. Once it's clean, I'll just flush it through with that, then I'll flush a bit more water through. So although I'm buying airbrush cleaner, I'm hardly using any, because I'm using this. So this paint is dry, so let's see how good this cleaner is. As I say, it's perfectly good enough for cleaning your airbrush. I'm not pressing too hard, and I know this is on a tile. Now that's the paint that we've just put down, which obviously hasn't set in as much as the rest. So what we'll do is we'll pop a little bit more on, and now this has been on there at least 3 weeks, because I haven't used this tile since last time I was home. So that's going to need some real scrubbing. Yeah, that's going to need a bit of a soak. So what I'll do is I'll pop a little bit on there and leave it just to get in there, and then I can go through the costs with you. Now, I'm ever so sorry guys, I'm not going to do fancy costs on the screen, etc. But what I will do is I'll go through the costs. So Tamiya thinner, which is this one equivalent, £10.83 for a little bit more than I've made here. So it's £43.32 per litre, £10.83 for a bottle. Vallejo airbrush cleaner is £52.57. Remember those figures. Let me tell you what this thinner has just cost me. The water was free. 50 millilitres of IPA, it was £7.57 per litre, so that's 38 pence. The retarder and the improver was £25.78 per 500 ml. Well, it's 250 ml of flow improver, 250 ml of retarder, so that's 52 pence. That is the most expensive bit in there, by looks of it. Yeah, it's far more expensive than the IPA. That makes a cost of 90 pence for this bottle. That's £6 per litre. £6. That is, I can't work. That is £37 per litre cheaper than Tamiya. Now, the screen wash, you're going to love this. The water was free. The IPA was 38 pence. The screen wash, which was £9.25 for 5 litres, comes to 10 pence. And it's 10 pence worth of ammonia. That comes to 58 pence per bottle. But don't forget, we've made about 150 ml of this, and we made about 200 ml of this. So that's 90 pence. This has come to 58 pence for 200 ml. That is £2.90 per litre, compared to £52.57 for Vallejo airbrush cleaner. That is roughly £50 per litre cheaper than Vallejo airbrush cleaner. It's even cheaper than the Medea, but the Medea is a better airbrush cleaner. So there's my little disclaimer. Now, another disclaimer, there is one thing about the costs. There is a slight issue. If you're on a tight budget, if you were to buy a bottle of Tamiya thinners and a bottle of Vallejo airbrush cleaner, that would come to £21.37. Now you're good to go. In order to make this, did you notice that I was saying things like the IPA is £7.57 per 1 litre, etc, etc. You will have to buy 1 litre of this, 5 litres of screen wash, etc, etc. What you'll end up doing, in order to get all of these ingredients, you're going to have to be spending round about £50, which is more than twice as much. But you are going to make so many, you probably won't buy it again. That is the only drawback. But there's my homemade thing. I say my airbrush thinners and cleaners. Obviously I gained inspiration from other YouTubers. So this has been soaking for a minute or two. Look at that. Did you see that, guys? I hardly put any pressure on that. Now that works. I think you'll agree that works exactly the same as, I will be fair, guys, I think that works about as good as a good airbrush cleaner, but not the best airbrush cleaner. You know, this isn't the best stuff. I'm sure if I went out and bought certain other chemicals, you know, until I know exactly what's in the top of the range airbrush cleaners, you know, I can only make a second best. But look at that. Is there anything wrong with that cleaner? Look. So you saw that this one I couldn't rub that off, but once I put a bit of cleaner on and I left it for a few minutes, it just lifted off. So yeah, guys, that is it. That's my my little video. I want to give a little bit of a look at that. Can you see how the paint's starting to dissolve in just a few minutes? Look at that. If I left that a bit longer, that'll lift off. So because I'll tell you what else I do with this. I've got from Poundland one of these funky jars, and it's got, look, you can see how long it's been in my possession. It's really dusty, and what I've done is I've pre-measured everything again, and I've made a jar of it, and that jar seals really tight. And what I do is I'll bung my airbrush in there, and I can seal that down. That's safe from any children or cats or anything like that. And then I can just leave my airbrush for a soak. And then you can see from this, it really isn't going to need a lot of soaking, is it? Right, guys, so I've timed this perfectly because I need to get away in about 5 minutes. I hope this video is of some use to you. I always do enjoy sharing my finds. I'll be honest with you, the inspiration I got, I'll try and put some links down if I remember. I got this from, well, credit needs to go to Genesis Models, and is it Barbatus Rex? They both have videos on making your own airbrush cleaner. All I've really done is passed on what they've said with my own experiences. So like I say about the experience, I don't think the airbrush cleaner is a top of the range airbrush cleaner, but as you can see, it's perfectly good enough to get rid of your paint off your airbrushes, and then you can use the good stuff to give it a really good deep clean. You wouldn't need to use it all the time, but this particular airbrush cleaner is level. Oh, excuse me. So I've got this much left, obviously it's tilted, and I literally use a cap full. If I was to use my airbrush every day, I would probably use about a cap full a week. I would just, when my airbrush is sorry, I probably use about a cap full a day. Basically I use about a cap full every time I use my airbrush. I flush my airbrush out with water, and then I'll put a little, quite a bit of this cleaner in. But as you can see from the costs of this is £2.90 per litre. You can afford to put as much as you want in because it's so cheap. Would you flush your airbrush through with 4 or 5 capfuls of airbrush cleaner if it cost you £52 a litre? I certainly wouldn't. Right guys, so I will leave you there. I hope this is, like I say, I hope this is of some use to you. Drop a comment if you've actually made it and tell me what you think. Do you think it's a load of rubbish? Do you think it's the best thing since airbrush thinners? Tell me what you think guys, and I'll catch you in another video. Take care guys, bye bye.